Good afternoon. I guess it's good. I don't know. It's an expression, a figure of speech. Good afternoon. Well, it is afternoon, and whether it's good or not, it depends on how you view what the president just said. I say the nuclear agreement, the Iran nuclear agreement, was the best way to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear-armed state. President Trump's refusal to recertify is a grave mistake that threatens America's security and our credibility at a very critical time. The president is ignoring the overwhelming consensus of nuclear scientists, national security experts, generals, and his own cabinet, including reportedly the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State. The fact is, Iran remains in compliance with the nuclear agreement. If they did not, we would not be supporting certification. If Iran were not in compliance, our allies would walk away. They are not. Supporters of the agreement harbor no illusions about the Iranian regime. That is why the agreement is based on proof, not trust. It has set up the toughest detection, inspection, and verification framework ever negotiated. Threatening this agreement does not isolate Iran. It isolates America. This week, our members, House Democrats, met with 4 European ambassadors, signatories to the agreement, who said, if the U.S. backs out of the JCPOA, we will not. Even former Israeli Prime Minister and Defense Minister Ehud Barak said that abandoning the deal would be a mistake. He said, even if America decides to pull out of it, no one will join, not the Chinese, not the Russians, not even the Europeans. It will serve the Iranians. President Trump's actions at this time is particularly dangerous and unhelpful as we try to prevent North Korea from obtaining full nuclear weapons capability. At the time when we did this agreement, 29 U.S. scientists called the JCPOA, said it could serve as a guidepost for future non-proliferation agreements. It went on to say this is an innovative agreement with much more stringent constraints than any previously negotiated non-proliferation framework. Brent Scowcroft, advisor to Republican presidents, said, there is no more credible expert on nuclear weapons than Energy Secretary Ernest Moniz, who led the technical negotiating team. At the time of the agreement, I was very proud of our members because they studied the agreement. They sought validation from, as I said, generals, Admiral Science. He's made some charges in his statement with which we agree. Yes, the ballistic program, missile program, that statement. The regime in Iran was ready to fall. Did you know that? And then we came in and bolstered them. The other, he talks about the money that went to Iran. It's Iran's money. He doesn't tell the American people the money that went to Iran was Iran's money. And if they had challenged us in international court on it, we would have lost and it would have cost more. So a little bit of, I don't even call it knowledge, but stuff is a dangerous thing when you're not giving the public the whole truth. If that weren't enough for the day, last night, as you know, in the past 24 hours, the president is taking radical and reckless steps that imperil the security of our nation, we discussed that, and the health of the American people. Make no mistake, last night the president single-handedly decided to raise America's health premiums for no reason except spite and cruelty. Cost-sharing reduction payments are essential to lowering health insurance cost. I don't know if the term is thanks to President Trump's decision. but because of President Trump's decision to cut them off, these cost-sharing payments, premiums will soar, according to a nonpartisan CBO headed by a Republican appointee, appointed by the Republicans in Congress. The CBO says that premiums will soar. Refusing to make these vital payments spikes America's health premiums by 20% in 2018. Middle-income families will be hit hardest. Because of President Trump's decision last night, middle-income families will be hit the hardest. Taxpayers will pay more. Ending these payments will increase the deficit by nearly $200 billion over 10 years. What is he thinking? Yesterday's executive order also, earlier in the day, seeks to raise premiums on Americans with pre-existing medical conditions. Sorry, if you have a pre-existing medical condition, you better be very, very rich. And will push Americans into paying for some junk insurance initiatives he's proposing with few protections and little coverage. And to add insult to injury, last Friday, the contraception coverage rule reaches into the lives of hundreds of thousands of women, overruled their right to basic preventive care, and forces them to pay a huge new cost, leaving it up to their employer to decide if they have access to contraception that they can afford. Congress must act immediately, clarifying the language to restore the vital cost-sharing reductions payments and reversing the chaos the president has tried to sow on America's health. This is a matter of life and death. I'd asked them to do this earlier in the year when the president first came in. I said it's a very simple language, one or two sentences that resolve this, and it will serve your purpose should you come up with a health insurance bill. Then in the spring omnibus, we tried to get them to do it again. Again, it is a matter of life and death. The GOP will try to blame the Affordable Care Act, but they have purposefully, brazenly, cruelly, and spitefully acted to sabotage the law and the health care it provides. It's a matter of life and death. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. I have the faintest idea what it is. What is Corker-Cotton?
They're proposing to amend the Iran Nuclear Review Act to, for example, instantly snap back sanctions if it's determined that Iran is within 1 year of developing a nuclear weapon, and to set a list of other stricter restrictions.
I'm not familiar with that, but the fact is they cannot amend the agreement. The agreement is an agreement, not negotiated among ourselves. It's an agreement negotiated among nations. The entire EU, at the centerpiece of it, the P5, that is the members of the Security Council plus one, Germany, and then China and Russia, who are members of the P5, and EU and Iran. So that's where the negotiation was, and they came out with the toughest agreement that was possible with that. I don't know what they're doing, but again, it is if it's a path to leaving, we're saying if they're not in compliance, we're all together on this. We're out if they're not in compliance. So I really would have to read what they have, because I'll tell you this. Maybe you heard the president say in his comments, leaders in the Congress are working on language. We haven't seen any of it. We haven't seen any of it on the Democratic side. We haven't seen any of it. Yes, sir.
You might be able to get Congress to act on CSR payments. Mr. Schumer was suggesting the year-end omnibus. Is that
one possibility.
The next opportunity? And what do you say to people that this could be playing with fire as far as a government shutdown?
Well, let me just, maybe we should stay on Iran and then come to that. Does anybody else have a question on Iran? No question on the Iran agreement. I refer to you to a statement put forth by our ranking member on the Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff. I think it spells out the sentiments of many in our caucus very well. And when we see what is the president is referencing about leadership in the Congress coming up with something, I'll be happy to comment on it. But we have very difficult and tough, stringent sanctions on Iran for their activities outside of the agreement, whether it's ballistic missiles, bolstering the Syrian regime, whether it's support for, as I said earlier, support for a terrorist what groups we view as terrorist organizations in the region. The list goes on, and we are there with very tough sanctions. But when it comes to the Iran agreement, we're very proud of the diplomatic triumph that it was, the respect that was given by nuclear physicists, Nobel laureates, and the rest, Republicans, in addition to Democrats, for the knowledge that we brought to the table. And again, the president claimed they are not agreeing to the spirit of the agreement. There is no spirit of the agreement. The agreement is a very toughly debated, negotiated, verifiable agreement. That's what they have to honor. And so far, his people who briefed me this morning, the person who called me from the administration, a high-level State Department official, I said very clearly, are they in violation of the agreement? No. So what are we doing here? Okay, so no other further comments. Read Adam Schiff's statement. It's has great clarity and comes from a place of real serious validation on the subject, being the ranking member on the Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff. Thank you. In terms of this, you have a couple questions in there at once. What do we do about the cost sharing?
Congress to act on the CSR payments? And
yes.
I think it's the omnibus at the end of the year, which is your best shot. And then, if you're going to mix that in with appropriations, aren't you risking a government shutdown?
There's no risk on our part of a government shutdown. We do not have the majority of the votes. We have never, ever supported a government shutdown. That is a tactic of the Republicans because they don't like government. So a shutdown is a good day for them. And that's what they have given us in the past, the threat of it, or a 17-day shutdown last time they did it. They have the votes, the majority in the House. They have the majority in the Senate. They have the president's signature. They alone have the power to shut down government. So that's not in our mix. I would like to have the language that would set the record straight. It's very simple. It's what we suggested in the last omnibus. And I said to them, this will serve you well if you have good intentions about doing any bill. But out of any funds in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, there are appropriated to the Secretary such sums as be necessary for payment under this section. That one sentence solves it. We wanted to put it in. We hope to put it in. Well, there are other vehicles. There are standalone vehicle, a vehicle that's just attached to a supplemental, or down the road in the omnibus, but that's pretty far down the road. Hopefully we could resolve it sooner. There are a number of members Republican members who now understand what this means to their constituents who might be receptive to this. That's that. And so, no, we're not about shutting down government. Yes, ma'am.
When you say on a supplemental, do you mean for disaster aid funding or something?
Yeah.
Have you talked to anyone about that? Or?
No, I'm just saying these are the vehicles leading the station. That's all. I was only describing those as vehicles leaving the station.
And that's something Democrats would support, though.
Well, we just want to get this language. We'd like it to be in a freestanding bill next Tuesday. That's what we would like. We'd like to get it done sooner. But again, we have to see if the Republicans are of good faith on this. And again, the American people will be the ones who weigh in. They are the ones who save the day, save the country from the horror of Trump care once, twice, another time. So again, we expect that as people see what this means in their lives, their costs, their economic and health security, that their stories will once again win the day. No, I was not suggesting any one of them. I'm just saying these are the vehicles that are leaving the station. There may be others. We'll see. But we hardly are even in. Here we are, a day that counts among the days we're supposed to be in, and we're not because the Speaker wants to keep us in until Christmas so that we get our work done. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
It seems like President Trump views the CSR issue as a bargaining chip, and OMB Director Mulvaney, in a media interview, basically said so. Do you think it is something that he could use in negotiations? He seems to want, say, a wall or some other items on his agenda in the fall.
What you're saying is the president wants to negotiate the good health of the American people to get a wall between the U.S. and Mexico? No, that won't work. I mean, he should do the right thing. And the right thing is to respect what we're trying to do to bring health care to all Americans, as well as those with pre-existing medical conditions. I don't know what he wants. I mean, do you know what he wants? Do you know what the president wants? Yeah, I mean, but do you have any idea from his vision, his presentation, what he might want? A wall? An ineffective, immoral, expensive wall?
I know when I read in Politico, I was interviewing Mr. Mulvaney.
Well, let's all remain calm. Let's take a deep breath. Let's curb all of our enthusiasms. Let's do what is right for the American people. And let's do so in a way that is based on facts, evidence, data, truth, not spite, cruelty, and a wall when it comes to the health and well-being of the American people. Any other question? Yes, sir.
Yes. When you take a look at this week in totality, between the president laying out his demands on immigration, the Iran deal today, his steps he took on the Affordable Care Act, are we seeing some of the limits of what Democrats can do to stop his agenda, or on the flip side, the power that the president has, even if he can't get a bill through?
Well, I'm not even sure what he did yesterday was legal, and there will be others who will question that in the courts. But in the meantime, we have a way to remedy. I use that word specifically, to remedy what is needed for our health, the good health of the American people. And it's about the American people. That is the court of public opinion is the wisest court that there is. And I respect the president. He is the president of the United States. I respect the job that he holds, the position he holds. I respect the people who voted for him. I'm glad they voted. I'm just happy when people vote. But I do want them to know what it means in their lives when he goes off on a spiteful, cruel toot to diminish their access to affordable care. And this isn't about just people of lower income, but they do suffer. It's about the middle class being the hardest hit in all of this, and the taxpayer having to pay the price. So if it comes to how we meet the needs of the American people, how it impacts their economic well-being, and how it impacts the national debt, either the president is being ill-advised or somebody there doesn't know how to do the math. But this is a bad idea for everyone in our country, including the national budget and the debt. So in any event, again, I think we have to calmly approach this because we have to do this sanely. And I'll just go back to one thing because I keep using the word spite. Spite became very clear to all of us when the president announced that he was going to overturn the Affordable Care Act. He calls it Obamacare and not a complimentary way. I call it that in a complimentary way, but I call it the Affordable Care Act, when he said he was going to do it on the day that it became law. You don't bring anything to the floor in spite of somebody else, something that happened 7 years before. You bring it to the floor when you have the votes. And that was the beginning of the end of any legislative overturning of the Affordable Care Act. So now let's act in a respectful way to each other, recognizing the president has the signature, the Republicans have the majority, the American people have the voice, and we're here for their good health. Any other questions? No? Yes, sir.
Is Senator Murray keeping you informed on her work with Senator Alexander on health care? And do you have any idea how much progress they've made?
Senator Murray knows that we support her judgment, her values, and they are shared by House and Senate Democrats. So I have confidence in her as she proceeds.
Are they close to anything, do you know?
That would be up to them to divulge to you. But I think they'll be as close as the Republican majority enables it to be. Thank you all very much. Thank you.